Good evening and welcome to this April 2nd meeting of the Norfolk Select Board. My name is Kevin Calcutt. I'm joined by my associate, Jim Lehan, and we are ready to get going with tonight's meeting. But first, we're going to kick it off in the same fashion as we typically do with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everybody. Justin, would you mind taking us through our agenda this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So we have a consideration of a new taxi cab license for Tandem Mobility Solutions, potentially voting to approve 2024 bonds, potential vote to approve IAC recommendations regarding health insurance, take consideration of surge procurement contracts, and potentially approving opioid settlement funds. And then we have budget reviews with police, IT, facilities, recreation, and the town clerk's office.
Fantastic. Making up 90% of our attendees this evening. All right, so our first item tonight is our public comment period. This is the point of the meeting where we invite anybody to be able to come up and join and speak with the board about items that fall within the purview of the board or the town administrator. We like to keep them to about 3 minutes to keep everything moving. So to that end, is there anyone who'd like to join us for public comment? Absolutely. Please make your way up here, take a cozy chair and a microphone.
Good evening.
Evening.
I thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm a longtime resident of Norfolk, and now I'm a senior citizen here. I've come to take a look at your budget for facilities because I'm interested specifically in the line item that you have for the senior center. I was wondering if there's going to be enough monies in there for the seniors to have a working stove. As you know, there's been many years that we've been out without a stove, and we've been doing takeouts. So that's my little comment.
Absolutely. And this isn't intended for a back and forth, but I just want to let you know, when we were there at the Senior Center last time, we took a tour of the kitchen, and you have some fantastic commercial grade equipment back there. And I think Justin and I talked about the potential for being able to use that equipment more effectively. So that's definitely on our radar right now, and we'll be able to get some more information as we get some guidance moving forward, correct?
Yeah, I would probably consider that for a counseling discussion with Karen Edwards. But yes, we can talk about it. It is on our radar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Do we have anybody else for public comment tonight? I'm not seeing anyone, so we'll be moving on to our next agenda item this evening, which is to vote to execute a taxi cab license for Tandem Mobility Solutions. Justin.
In the board's packet, they have Hackney application taxi license. Public Safety has reviewed this. We've done some Corey check. The Corey check regarding this. Approval of this license should be subjected to receipt of all remaining documentation, inspection, and fees, but we haven't seen anything that we're concerned about at the moment.
Very good. Jim, any questions?
No.
Yeah, I don't believe I have any questions either. So to that end, Jim, would you like to make a motion to approve?
I will move to execute a taxi cab license for Tandem Mobility Solutions, subject to all completions of all necessary paperwork.
I will second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that is a unanimous approval. Thank you. Our next item this evening is to vote to approve general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2024 bonds.
In the board's packet, you have information regarding the sale of the 2024 bonds. Just for the public's information, this includes water projects, which include water mains, meters, and water main repairs, as well as the bond for the fire station. The board is aware we did a ban previously for it, so this is now doing the 30-year bond for those projects. The information for this bond is included in the board's packet, but the net effective rate, I think we got a competitive rate. We got 3.5% over the life of the bonds with the premium accounted for. So we think it's a very good rate, and this is more of a just semantic vote. It was already awarded to Fidelity Capital.
Very good. Jim, any questions?
No, just a comment. I did have some issues with this last time we spoke. I'm perfectly comfortable with this particular solution, so this is a satisfactory result for me.
Thank you very much. In that case, I do have a motion here. Is this a motion or is this just a statement?
The first part you should say as a statement, but then the voted aspect is what you'll just say.
Yeah, I believe we have to vote to approve the general obligation municipal loan.
So the voted section would be the motion to be seconded. Got it. Okay.
So moved.
I, the clerk of the Select Board of the Town of Norfolk, Massachusetts, certify that at a meeting of the board held April 2nd, 2024, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. So then I move that the sale of the $24,675,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2024 bonds of the town dated April 2nd, April 10th, 2024 to Fidelity Capital Markets, a division of National Financial Services LLC, at the price of $26,044,117.94 and accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on April 1st of the years and in the principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as stated therein. Man, that is just not easy to read.
You know, some boards read all of the further voted section 2. It's not a requirement, so we got the skim version.
You can start doing that on May 8th. Jim,
Well,
do we hear
as a former finance guy, I've never heard anyone make a motion quite that long, but it's appropriate. Thank you. Just one comment on this. I think the rates were very competitive and duly noted that these bonds and the payment do not take effect until 2025, just so folks know that, because that obviously has an impact on your taxes.
Yep. Do we
So you
hear
have read the motion. I will second.
hearing a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that is a unanimous vote. Did not require a roll call, correct?
No.
Good. All right, moving on to our next item this evening, which is to discuss and potentially vote to approve the Insurance Advisory Committee's recommendations.
I will let Ms. Kate O'Brien speak to this. She sort of spearheaded this project with our relative union, so I'll let Kate speak to this.
Thank you.
agenda item.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So before you, I have a memo outlining the Insurance Advisory Committee's process throughout the last year. The town facing another almost 10% increase in our health insurance, which is the cap this year. In the fall, we were made aware, so we met with Maya, and we kind of were looking at different options that would give the employee and also the town some savings. We convened the IAC, which is a committee that is, I think, all union member representatives, presidents are on there. So every unit, employer group has a representative on that. We met twice. The consensus was to not switch our HMO plan. However, we did have some really good conversations about two other plans that we did have, very low numbers on there, and it was decided and recommended through the IAC to increase those two deductibles on those plans to make them a true high deductible plan. So doing that makes it, for two reasons. One, just makes it a more affordable option. So we have a more variety of options for employees. Also, will eventually over time, if a lot more people do switch over to that, the town will eventually over the long term see some savings. We're also going to start offering an HSA, which again, you can only have with a high deductible plan. So those were the two changes that came out of the two meetings, which was, I think, pretty successful because we had some really good conversations with the employee groups. So this is something, that they wanted. And when we saw that, we agree. It's good. It's a good option for the town. And it's good for employees. So we would ask that the board consider to vote to approve the changes.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kate. My only question was, what does this mean for the look forward? What does this mean for years 2, 3, 4 down the road? Do you see any kind of upward trend or any kind of slowing of these increases, anything like that based on these discussions?
it's not looking like that. They said it's very cyclical. We've had some really, really good years. A couple years ago, we even had a year where I believe employees were paid money back. But we are just unfortunately on the other side of that swing right now. A lot of factors, really just the market and post-COVID world. So we are on that high end, and then we're probably going to be on that high end for a couple more years. So I think making these two changes, although very small right now, eventually over time, I think will benefit the town.
Fantastic, thank you. Jim?
Just a couple of questions. I mean, people understand that these high deductible are basically catastrophic plans. They understand that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would just add, one thing that we are doing as well, and we did this last year, we're having a more revamped open sort of house or open enrollment period where we do bring representatives here at Town Hall to allow people to ask some of those questions. So one, when we had these design changes, Jim, they can understand what these design changes are. But furthermore, one thing that we've talked about this before when we talked about this process that we were doing with the IEC is we wanted to be very collaborative with our workforce. So there were some good ideas bandied about in this process, but moving forward, we're going to look at it holistically, like whether we look at different carrier options, et cetera. But this was just a good first step. I think I appreciate the work that Kate, as well as all the union representatives who participated, did. I thought it was very productive, and I think these plans, like Kate said, it's something that they recommended and supported, so I think it makes sense to proceed.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep, we'll be having our health fair next month. So again, that's our time to really make sure that everyone knows all the information, the pros and cons for different of the plans, what falls under a deductible, all those things will be really important with those two new changes.
Yeah, it's just important that these people understand that if they're choosing this option, and it's a
Yep.
viable option for some
Yep.
folks, that they're self-insuring the routine medical coverages that most people have.
Right, yep.
And, this is intended to cover major medical costs. As long
Right,
as they understand that, they're good options.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that was the goal too, is like we didn't have that option. So more variety of options, I think, is better.
If they stay healthy, they'll have, well, we don't want anybody to have catastrophic medical issues, so that's not an option we want for anyone. But it's a viable option as long as they understand it.
Any other questions?
No.
No? All right, in that case, I would take a motion to approve the insurance plan design changes as recommended by the IAC.
So moved.
So moved. I will second the motion. I got to get this not three people thing down. I'm going to get there eventually by the end of the meeting. Motion is seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and thank you, Kate, for your work on this. Our next item tonight is to vote to award various SERSG procurement contracts and authorize the town administrator to execute said contracts. Justin?
As the board is aware, we have, during various times of the year, we have various surge contracts. This is a collective with 26 other communities, and it realizes savings because we are a member of this community. So there's various DPW items here. It's for the period of March 1st, 2024 to February 28th, 2025. I would just ask that the board authorize me to execute the contracts, because there's quite a few of them, and save them all some time.
Appreciated, thank you. Jim, any questions?
No.
Yeah, this is fairly routine in nature. The motion has to be for each one individually?
No.
No.
Nope.
Thank the Lord. In that case, I would take a motion to approve and designate the town administrator to execute.
I move to award the various surge contracts, our procurement contracts, and authorize the town administrator to execute those contracts.
I will second that motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that is another unanimous vote. Thank you. Our next item tonight is to vote to approve the opioid settlement distribution funds. I know that last time we had some questions about the allowance of certain expenses in the program and whatnot. I think we got some good feedback, correct?
Correct. Kate, last week, had met with the CARE team, sort of a advisory group, and they had given us some language. They gave us some assurance that the projects that we have received were eligible expenses. So in the board's packet, you have sort of where your up-to-date status is. The board did approve $7,000 for Gillies House previously, and that was an eligible expenditure. From what we saw, it was a capital expenditure. And then $2,000 at your last meeting for Safe Coalition was appropriated. So you've appropriated $9,000, and you have $11,000 of remaining funds eligible to allocate, if you so wish.
Very good, thank you. So to that end, Jim, it looks like we have a request from the Norfolk Public Schools for $8,000 for a social worker, $5,000 from the Safe Coalition for a community awareness campaign, and then $2,000 and $1,000 for various expenditures at Gillies House. I believe that we had originally discussed being able to segment out that first amount of monies evenly between the three applicants.
We did.
That is a little hard to do, given that we've already allocated $7,000 to Gillies, $2,000 to the Safe Coalition. So one of those two requests, either Norfolk Public Schools or the Safe Coalition's Community Awareness Campaign, will not get the full amount requested, if I'm doing math correctly. Thank you. So how do you want to split that up?
Well, the fairest way, I guess, would be proportionately based on their requests. I'm not sure that I'm prepared to play Solomon on such valid requests. So if you just take the amount available and proportionately to what their requests are and put that percentage to it, I think that's probably the best way to do it.
So if we do $4,500 for the Safe Coalition and we do $7,500 for the Norfolk Public Schools, that does get us there, if I'm not mistaken.
I
Justin,
think you're correct.
Can you check my math?
No, you're 1,000 over, so maybe
Hard no.
6,500.
What did you say?
He said 7,500 and 4,500, so it's 12.
That won't make it.
Got it. So it's
Just
7,000 and
1,000.
4,000.
Correct.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. So Jim, are you okay with those allotments?
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to do it.
Yep.
I mean, it's just certainly all worthy causes, and I want to get the money out, as you do. So
Absolutely.
let's do it.
Okay.
Just so I have this correct as well, so 7,000 for MPS for the social worker, another $4,000 for the Safe Coalition.
Correct.
And then the board's plan, or what we had talked about previously, was the remaining amount that we have available to us to consider to allocate that at the November special town meeting.
That's correct. We would be able to post again, identifying another round of applications that would be accepted, and I would envision that the board would then be able to take that up at town meeting.
Yep.
With some kind of deadline that gave appropriate runway to be able to have a discussion and be able to lay it out.
Okay.
All right. In that case, I would accept a motion to approve the distribution of $7,000 of opioid settlement funds to the Norfolk Public Schools for a social worker and $4,000 to the Safe Coalition for a community awareness campaign.
So moved.
I will second that motion. Any further discussion?
None.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And thank you so much to Gillies House, Safe Coalition, and the Norfolk Public Schools for their applications and their appropriate allocation of these monies.
Yeah, nice to see this money going to good use.
Absolutely. All right, that brings us to our first discussion item this evening, which is going to be the police FY25 budget review. Justin, do you want to lead us into the budget presentations?
No, I think the board has, had mentioned as part of their goals, they wanted to hear more from our department head. So as part of this process of the budget, we've brought every department head here, and we've got the police department, Deputy Chief Alexander.
How's it going?
Good, you?
Fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Nice to see you folks. As always.
You too. What we'd like to do tonight is open up with just a little review of 2023. Go through go through our budget and how we came across some of the cuts that we had to make. And then I want to highlight some of the efforts of the officers and the outstanding job that they've done. And I think that what you're going to hear from what they've done is going to work right into what we're discussing tonight. So initially, I'd just like to talk about last year. Our calls went up 12% from the previous year. We had 14,179 calls for service, and that pretty much includes everything that we do, from arrests, responding to public's request to see an officer, to assisting people at the station, to everything that we do. Our calls went up 12% from the prior year. going to see that our arrests went down slightly and our criminal complaints went down slightly, but our motor vehicle stops and our citations were up. And the reason why they went down, the arrest and the criminal complaints, is it's two reasons. One is a jail diversion program. We think the clinician that helped that we contract with really helped us take the minor offenses and get those people help instead of putting it into an arrest and get them into the court system. So we're utilizing agencies like SAFE and other agencies that are that we can refer people to try to get help instead of looking to charge them. The second is our officers in their training, trying to, they've received multiple different types of training to deal with this and try to divert the minor arrests to services and getting help for individuals and their families. So that's pretty much a overview of 2023. Our police budget, we worked hard with Justin and Todd and our team to come into where they need us to be. Overall, we're at 5% increase. We worked with a lot of our vendors on the expense side and dropped that down under what we were for the request last year. But a big stressor is for that increase is almost over 95 to 97% of our budget is salaries. We had the luxury the last 5 to 7 years of a lot of top earners retiring, and we had officers coming in at lower steps. Well, they're starting to now climb up. So they're climbing up the steps, and their salaries are going up. The second one is college incentives. We have 5 officers this year either getting a higher degree or achieving their degree for the first time, which we think is wonderful. We want an educated, well-rounded officer, and I think that just makes for a better police officer, and we support that 100%. So those are really the major stresses in our budget, and we worked hard to come to the number that the town was looking for to go forward. But the impact of that is substantial. So our specialty units, our SRO officers, our detectives, they're going to be impacted because we're going to have to take them and backfill our officers who are going to be going out for mandatory training, because post is still a major unfunded mandate that we have to have a minimum amount of hours a year that we have to train officers, so we have no choice. So we have to send those officers out, and the specialty units are going to have to backfill those shifts to make up for those cuts we had to come across. And in that budget, where it's mainly salary, it's training that really takes the hit. So that's where we found a major source to find that money, and so that's where we're going to have to really dip into our specialty units to backfill, which services emergency response, really. So that's what we're going to have to do to make that up. With that said, we're confident that we're going to be able to still provide the service that we need to do. We recognized last year that we needed to, have more presence at the school. We put a part-time SRO in, along with our full-time SRO officer, and we also trained a DARE officer, just to have that presence at the school. We want to see more presence at the school. So those are the little areas that there may be a day where they may not be able to go because they're going to be on the road answering calls. So I think we'll be able to manage that, but that's the one area where we're going to have to watch. Our goals for 2025, for fiscal year 25, we're looking to get a full-time mental health clinician hired by the town. Michelle can go a little bit more into that, and she's spearheading that project.
Yeah, we had a clinician for approximately 6 months before she had moved on to a different position. We have a $100,000 grant that we hold to fund that position. It's through the Department of Mental Health. That grant is solid, so what we're looking to do is apply for that grant once again for FY25, which we are 100% certain we will receive. that grant is going to fund the position. The shift that we're making is we're changing from a private company who held the model and hired the clinician. What we're finding is that company grew too large and too fast, and they don't have the staffing to fill the positions. So we waited 6 months for a clinician to be hired, and unfortunately, they couldn't fill the position. So we've kind of brainstormed, we changed our approach. That person is now going to be a Town of Norfolk employee, funded fully by the grant, and shared between Norfolk, Rentham, Plainville. So we're looking forward to starting to advertise for that position, and it's something that is critical to our mission to be able to have somebody that can help divert some of these calls for service and get resources for people. So we're looking forward to that for 25.
Fantastic.
Another achievement we're looking to do in '25 is to get state certification. We're in the accreditation process right now. We're full steam ahead on that. It's a lot of hours, and we're being helped by multiple people. We're looking at this year possibly trying to hire an extra officer and then promote someone to oversee that whole program. But right now, the deputy is the accreditation manager and has the assistance of 2 other officers part-time basis. We're getting through that, but the goal is to try to get certified within FY25, if not very close, and it's a lot of work. And another goal in 25 is to research and obtain additional grants. We're very robust in that area. We have 5 or 6 this year that we were able to attain, and we're looking to. It actually just came out today. It was the accreditation grant for mass cops. For federal cops. So we're looking to get some help towards accreditation hopefully from those grants. Right now, we have a traffic enforcement grant, approximately $12,000 a year towards that, and that goes towards certain traffic enforcement times during the year, OUI detection, and distracted drivers, things like that we try to focus on. We also have a body armor reimbursement grant that we have. Anyone that gets that, we get reimbursed from the state and the federal government. And also what's with post is our part-time officers, our reserve officers have to have the same training as our full-time officers. So they're enrolled into what's called the bridge program to bring them up to the same training. We received a $3,000 grant to pay for those officers and their training, and right now we have one that's in that program. So those are the grants and the goals for 25, and that leads me towards the end. I wanted to take the opportunity to show and recognize some of the officers that are present here tonight. I could have brought in the whole department, to be quite honest with you. As a whole, they do an outstanding job, and it's easy to work with these officers and just the job they do on a daily basis. I'd like to recognize them all. But tonight we'll really put in a nutshell what training does and what that training does on the street. The first officer I'd like to recognize is Officer Katie Appel. She's our school resource officer. In 2 areas. The first one was in October of '23. Katie went to Lewiston, Maine after the mass shooting. She brought up the 2 service dogs, Mitch, and the fire department service dogs, Hopper. She went up there to assist the first day back to school where some victims' families were enrolled in the school. And she did put in for the time, but she donated much more of her own time, and I'd like to recognize that effort from her. And mutual aid just isn't to the towns next to us. It sometimes can be a state away. And the impact she had with the service dogs up there was unbelievable, and I'd like to recognize her for that. The second thing I'd like to recognize her from is I received a letter of appreciation from the Robert Ryan. He's the clerk of the juvenile court down in Dedham. And he wanted to just say appreciate Katie's efforts when she's down there as a juvenile court officer, and the professionalism and and what she does for and advocates for juvenile offenders and their families. And his closing line was, "Her character and commitment to the people of Norfolk has made your town a better and safer place to live. Just wanted to compliment her on a job well done." And these are things that she does on a daily basis. Being a school resource officer, she answers calls over the weekends, she talks to families over the weekends. She's very involved and really puts a lot of time in, more than she gets paid, but I like to recognize her efforts in that. And then the next group of officers, there was 3 different calls within a week's time. The first officer I'd like to recognize is Officer Stephen Hamilton. Stephen is our part-time SRO officer, but he also works midnights. And on March 11th, he responded to a call at 12:30 in the morning with a emotionally disturbed person that had a knife. Steve arrived with Sergeant Swinier and Officer Melissa Cochran. They found the party in the basement. Stephen was able to use his de-escalation skills, his experience to bring that person down, to talk to that person, to de-escalate the whole situation. And that process took quite a long time. Stephen was able to, at that point, the weapon was no longer there. He was able to speak with family members on the phone, calm that person down, and get them the help that they needed. And I'd like to accommodate Stephen on that effort. Thank you, Stephen. The next officers I'd like to recognize is, and I don't think he's here right now, but is Officer Chris Catalano. On March 19th, Chris was dispatched to a welfare check. Family was speaking to an individual who said he was having a medical episode, and then the line went dead. He responded with Officer Milano and Sergeant Eichel. They tried to make contact with that person, and they were unable to do so. By knocking on the door, knocking on windows, announcing themselves, the fire department arrived, and firefighter Brady and Officer Catalano found an open window and went in through the window. As Officer Catalano they were announcing themselves and trying to make contact with the person came out of the room, had a firearm down by their side, had altered mental status because of the medical situation that was going on. Chris was able to use his de-escalation skills and his training to bring that person down, to disarm that person, and have a positive outcome from that person that could have gone very bad. But I'd like to, recognize Chris on those efforts. The last group of officers I'd like to recognize is Officer James Vincent, Officer Daniel Mazzola, and Officer Nicholas Ethier. On March 21st, they responded to a high-risk warrant and / domestic violence case. They were advised that the offender was very violent, and he did make statements to harm police when he did see them. They knew that firearms were involved. They set up on the house as the shift sergeant, Sergeant Webb, contacted Metro SWAT to coordinate with them to approach the subject and to try to bring him into custody. As the 3 officers sat on the house, they formulated a plan. That subject did come from the house, went up to his mailbox, and they were able to put that subject in custody without using much force and get him into custody. A warrant was executed, and in the car in the house, 500 rounds of ammunition was found, body armor, several weapons. So these officers acted quickly, got this person into custody before it turned into a worse situation. So I'd like to recognize those 3 officers for their efforts tonight. And so the theme with this is a lot of how they responded was from training. And, we cannot continue to sustain the cuts into the training area because it's going to affect how our officers act on the street and perform on the street. So not only do they do an outstanding job, but they love to train. And it shows. And these 3 incidents happened within a week and a half of each other, and it just shows that we're in a very safe town, but we're not immune. And I just wanted to highlight their actions and their performance. And that's all I have right now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chief.
Yes.
And thank you, all of you who are here today who are recognized, and I know the many more that on a day-to-day basis do so much to keep us safe. 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. Every year we find ourselves in the top 10 of safest town in Massachusetts. That just doesn't happen. And that's because of the work that you all are doing, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate it as a community. Thank you. Chief, I had a couple of questions for you associated to the budget presentation. The first one was surrounding post requirements. You and I have spoken in the past about what kind of burden that introduces to a department and how the municipalities are kind of faced with having to bridge the funding gaps to make that happen. You talked about the training aspect of it, but I had a question about the administration aspect of it. How much of that is bearing on the budget that we're preparing and presenting this year?
So it's a significant time put into it because we're now in the last batch of officers to certify them. So we have to go through that whole process to certify them. We're lucky we're in a community where we don't have a lot of negative complaints, but that is also a lot has to be reported to post that we just don't have control of anymore, and that takes an aspect of it. So it's really, it's time consuming, and that's part of the deputies and myself's responsibility to make sure we're in line with what the post requires, and it's one thing that was just added on us, and and we're able to meet those our requirements at this point.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then a question about recruitment. In the past, we talked about the challenges associated to recruitment and some of the creative manners in which you've been addressing that by going into college campuses, going to recruitment days and whatnot. How is that looking now, a year later, after the last time we spoke about that?
Actually, I think it was the Herald, I'm not too sure, but recruitment really is just tough across the industry in Massachusetts. And it's really not much improvement. I believe the state police have, and don't quote me with the exact numbers, but they would get 7,000 to 8,000 applicants. I think they got 1,500 on their last test, right around those numbers. So that just shows you. And there was an article that just recently came out saying how people just don't want to be police officers. So it's tough. And, we're doing our best to be ambassadors. And I think, we showcase officers doing the right thing out there, and they're ambassadors of not only the department, of the town. And, we hope we can recruit, a diverse candidate, to come to our town. And it's tough, but we're trying.
Perfect. Thank you. Jim, do you have any questions?
I'm sorry, these gentlemen are leaving.
They're actually
But
on the
unfortunately,
shift,
it's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, depending how you look at it. Just a couple of comments, Chief. First, in my 18 years on this board, I've gotten to know a lot of the officers, and while I only know a piece of all that you go through, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you do for Norfolk and all of the officers. You guys are incredible. People don't understand how fortunate we are to have the department we have. And so thank you for all you do. And that comes from my heart. You really, really are outstanding folks. We are very grateful for what you do. Just maybe for public information, you were talking about the educational process. We know it as the Quinn Bill, which is something the town adopted many, many years ago. It was fully state funded at the time. It was the right thing to do. It still is the right thing to do, and has happened with a number of the funding programs from the state. They chose to no longer fund it, and the town made the decision to stay with it, and that is the right decision. But that is a lot of the budget issues that you have to deal with, but they're paid for the right reasons. So that's good news that you're getting officers that are getting those credits,
Yes, yeah.
and I compliment you for that. No, I'm a walking commercial for you because I know what you guys do. I know you and I have spent quite a bit of time together, and I'm just grateful for all of your officers, all of the department, and we're lucky to have you. Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
Appreciate it, and we appreciate the support of the board. And one thing just to add, if I could, on the college incentive, we have to stay competitive to get these candidates. And if we start cutting those programs,
Yep.
I want to say the officers that are coming in now are I don't want to say they were smarter than I am, but I was happy to get a job back when I came on.
I hear you.
But now they're looking at contracts, they're looking at benefits, they're looking at everything, and what's going to best fit me and who's offering the best. So I think we got to stay competitive and keep that program robust.
And if I may, one more comment. You and I talked about cameras, and just the fact that your officers want them, and encourage that, I compliment you for that. I hope we're able to accomplish that and get them somehow into the budget and provide, because it adds production for you. You guys do the right thing the right way, and you need to be protected and making sure that people understand that. So hopefully we can find a way to get that done. I know we've talked about
Yes,
that,
yep.
I hope that's on the future scope.
It is. It's on the radar.
Good.
Yep.
I had one more question for Deputy Chief Palladini. You had outlined the Department of Mental Health grant for the clinician, which is fantastic and welcomed. My concern, though, is whenever we get a grant funding for a position, at some point, that grant funding is going to run out, and then we have the hard decision of having to absorb the cost or to lose that position. Do you foresee that being an issue as we look ahead to fiscal year 26 and 27?
In speaking with the Department of Mental Health and my contact, she said the grant is very stable, particularly where the state is allocating funds towards mental health resources, since we're in the middle of a mental health crisis right now. With that said, we have spoken with Chief McGrath from Rentham and Chief Floyd in Plainville that if the grant were to fall, we would be able to split the cost 3 ways and budget for it. So we have that on our radar, and hopefully we don't lose the grant, but if we do, that's the plan.
I appreciate the foresight and being able to accommodate what that's going to look like and regionalize and moving forward. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That was all the questions that I had. Jim, anything else from your end?
No, I just reinforce what Kevin just said. The mental health issues that we're dealing with, not just with your department, but across the board. I see it in the schools all the time. It's tragic, in my view. And the data that I see at King Philip scares me. So anything and everything we can do to help the mental stability of our community, our officers, all of the folks that are here, that is a dollar well spent.
Agreed.
All right, since we don't have any other questions, I think you are both off the hook.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
You were never on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Officers, thank you.
Be right back in 1 second. Right. Our next item this evening is to speak with our information technology resource. I don't think you have a full team coming up with you over there, Ton, do you? You are the whole team, that's right. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So my budget is pretty straightforward. It's just only 2 categories, salary and expenses. And the good news is the FY25 budget is almost flat. It's only $773 more than last year. The salary is contractual, so there's not much to say about that. So on the expenses side, because we try to save money, so I negotiate with the vendors on FY24. We were able to prepay them and then get $14,000 of savings on that. And so if we pay upfront, and we got that savings, and because of that, the following year, that line item got drop off. Therefore, because of that item drop off, it's my budget go lower than the current year. And now the increase on the expenses this year is 3 years ago. I signed a 3-year commitment with using the Google Suite with a 25% discount, and anticipated this that's going to be over in June in 24, and anticipated an increase almost like 100%. But with Justin help and Todd help, I was able to go back to Google and negotiate with them again, and they got me a discount this time around, and it's only, instead of increase almost 100%, it only increased about 33%.
Great.
So it only increased like $10,000, about $11,000. So my biggest increase this year would be the Google Suite. That increase, that's the increase that we got. And pretty much because of that, I was able to absorb the increase of the salary and the increase of the Google due to the savings from the previous year of prepaid and to take the advantage of the savings. So my budget is flat, almost flat. The other thing that is pretty big lately is the cybersecurity training. The good news is that the state has offered a training to other municipalities, and I've taken advantage of that. I've been renewing them every year, and because we're able to do that, it saves us $5,000. If we do it ourselves, we have to out of our pocket we put $5,000. So I will use that and apply for that as long as they give us. And then the couple updates. Last year, I was working with the COA to get the digital literacy grant, and we're able to get that grant. And February, I was able to set up the training lab, and also bought all the iPads as a loaner and the trainers. And now the COA hired the trainer to come in to train all of the senior citizens on different programs. So they are doing it now. And then the new fire station project, all I can say, the IT portion project to be on time as of
You
today.
had to check again. That scared me for a second there. Nicely done.
As of today, is still on schedule. Pretty much that's all I have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tom. I mean, you hit on the 2 points that I was going to talk about. One, software as a service is going to be increasing every year looking forward, and that's just the reality of the industry, right?
Yes.
To be able to negotiate those increases down, I would imagine based on the fact that we're a municipality versus an independent company, there is some wiggle room there, so it's good to hear that you're taking advantage of that. The second thing I was going to touch on was cybersecurity. Obviously, when you see issues in other municipalities in the area, you always wonder how vulnerable are we. So it's good to hear that we're going through the steps to ensure that we're getting everybody trained up, and just checking all the boxes that we should be. So appreciate that. In your mind, is there any opportunities from a cybersecurity standpoint that we're not able to take advantage of because of budgetary constraints?
I am currently applying for the grant to do the MFA, the multi-factor authentications. And I won't know, I will have the answer until sometime in mid-May or the end of May. If that grant, if we get approved for that, that'll be helpful for us to implement the multi-factor authentications, which one of the requirements or looking at very closely by cybersecurity insurance renewal. Mm-hmm. They are looking at three components. Antivirus software that nowadays is no longer really enough. They use something called EDR for endpoint detection response, which means that it will see based on the activities on the endpoint that it will give you the alert and how to deal with it. The old day with antivirus is when the programs start acting up, then we stop the program. Now it has the ability to detect it before it gets out of control. So that is one element. The second element is the multi-form authentications. Every day now, especially we deal with the bank, you have your user ID and password and some form of second ID to validate who you are. Right. And we have to do that the same thing here and ensure the cyber insurance, security insurance, they looking for something like that. So that's what I'm taking advantage of that. And it depends on the outcome of the grant.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim?
I have no questions on your budget, just maybe the Cliff Note version of Kevin's comments. Is there anything that you need to keep us safe that you don't have?
At this point, no.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thanks.
Next up, we'll be hearing from our facilities department. Welcome, Matt. How are you?
Thanks. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
Hey, Matt.
So I'll just go down from the top of the budget. So working with Todd and Justin, I think we got the budget down a good deal for facilities. The salaries obviously went down because of steps.
Yep.
And I think it's also important to note in that we did put some money in there to explore like outsourcing custodial services, because the fire station's just adding more square footage now.
Right.
And so our full-time custodian, her square footage that she does every day, it's too much. So, and if she takes time off, then our half-time custodian has to basically, we'll be doing about 125,000 square feet. So, and we still got that down with that amount that we put it in. For the town hall, for most of the buildings, the way we were able to do it was just nitpick here and there, take little maintenance, take little supply lines out. Our biggest fear was the fire station, because that's brand new. We were able to cut some money there because a lot of the problems this first year are going to be covered under warranties. And we had several lines in there as well for like the fire station trailer, and we can get rid of all those. The oil lines came, basically zero. So the fire station it looks like we significantly cut the budget, but the other thing to note there is that we moved the electricity lines will be under like the solar power generation, all those lines. Same with the police, the way it looks like we cut the police budget that much. It's because we moved the electrical line over to most of where all the electrical accounts are. Elementary maintenance, same thing, nitpicked with the lines here and there. Major maintenance, we kept the same. And the DPW, that is actually an increase this year. We lowered the oil a little, but we did do a project like 2 years ago for infrared heaters and the vehicle storage bay, so we had to create a propane line because that runs off of that. So that helped increase that line a little bit. Also at the fire station, now we have an elevator there, so we had to have a service line for that. And that's about it. Unless you have any questions.
I don't know if it's just conditioning or not, but whenever facilities would come before the board before, I was bracing for we need to spend 17 million for this, otherwise we're going to be in bad shape next year. And not that I didn't think there wasn't any, truth behind that. I do. But I didn't necessarily get that from you this time around. So I don't know if you're just trying to shield us from that framing.
No, I mean,
is there something out there right now that we need to put on the roadmap sooner rather than later in terms of a large capital expense?
Well, most of our capital expenses we've already figured that out, so they are on there.
Okay.
Equipment's aging as always, we're getting behind on that stuff. Our employees are getting more longevity, so more time off, so that puts a strain as well. Most of our plans down the road are in the capital projects that we have.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you. The only other question I had was about staffing. You hit on the point that I was going to touch on about the new fire station and what that means in terms of increased capacity and lack thereof of coverage. Is there any other areas that give you cause for concern in terms of our ability to cover with what we have right now?
Contractors.
Yeah.
And the prices that go up with them. Every year they go up. Same with like most of our contracts, like trash is always going to go up.
Yep.
Supplies, that keeps going up now. Some places are charging you fuel surcharges, unfortunately. And, yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you. Jim?
I don't have any questions on your budget. Thanks, Matt, for what you do. And my question would be a little parallel to what Kevin was talking about, because to me, our exposure is long-term capital planning. And I know you have a capital plan. just keep it current, keep us at, and the more we can forecast that, the more we can begin to plan for that, the more we can set aside funds for that, the better we'll be. That's always been our exposure in terms of what you folks have to do. So just keep us close to that.
Just to touch base on that, so right now, the 3 capital projects that we got approved for,
Right.
we're working on those. We found a vendor to fix the FK wall. The boiler guys are going to replace a boiler over at the library finally, so that will be done before the winter. And then the other one was a nitrogen generator to be installed at the library to help slow down the corrosion in the sprinkler pipes.
Yeah. Well, it never ends. I mean, there's always something, but our facilities are getting older.
Yes.
And it's just something we need to be constantly aware of. And just from my perspective, this doesn't have to wait to an annual event. If you see things that we need to pay attention to and begin to plan for that come up that didn't anticipate, don't hide it. Come talk to us.
Absolutely.
Right,
Fantastic.
thanks.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Next, we will be hearing from
And Proto.
local celebrity Ann Proto. Please come and join us.
And Ann, I promise I will not bring up the pickleball courts.
This is victory lap. No, we want to talk about
No,
that.
it's an old story.
Yes, it is.
It's an old story, Kevin.
Yes. But I will tell you that the Recreation Commission will have Scott Dietrich's name on them.
We'll let it go at that. We'll keep it between you and me.
Hi, everyone. So I have the recreation budget. It's probably one of the shorter budgets that you see. But I did detail out what we spend on salaries and expense. Our overall budget is, for both, is $216,000. That's not a number that you see. On the paper I handed out, the numbers in blue are the ones that are covered by the general fund. So the general fund covers my salary, 19 hours of the program coordinator, and 19 hours of the administration staff, the administration staff, assistant, I'm sorry. And then we cover the balance, which is about $70,000. That also, and actually part of what you also cover is the commission has administrator for the minutes and such. So that's covered as well. As far as the expense goes, our expense line hasn't changed in I don't know how many years. It's $2,700. It covers the things like some licensing, but most importantly, continuing education and any type of exam fees or any kind of documentation that we need to keep up with certifications. So. And then we do have, we actually have an increase in our budget line for our software. We had some software used the program for about 18 years, and when we first started using them, it was, we were smaller numbers, and it was fine for a long time, but we ran into quite a significant problem this January, and it was definitely time to switch. And with that came in the increased cost, but we will cover that as part of doing business. Mm-hmm. It's a good move. It's a much easier site to use for both us, which is a time saver, which is great, but also for the residents. We've gotten great feedback. I did outline on the next page some statistics just to go through. There's a lot. Sometimes people don't really realize that how many numbers of people come through all the different facilities we use, which I am very thankful that we have those facilities to use. I did mention some strengths, and I think one of our greatest strengths is, working with the different community groups, but also the different town departments, and we have a school partnership that's very successful, so we are allowed to, have programs which extend the day, extend the day, so working parents can take advantage of that, as well as what the school offers. So last year, the calendar year, we took in 6,359 registrations, which if you multiply by how many times the classes meet, it comes out to about 36,000 attendances. school year programming. We have 60 classes a week. That's not just school age, but a lot of it is school age, and that's 28,000 attendances. And summer programs, this year we have about 85 programs, a little give or take. And currently, and actually in our first 2 weeks of registration, we took in 2,156 registrations. So times the amount of days they meet, it's about 9,000 attendances. So I'm very thankful. Again, one of our strengths is, I feel, is our staff. We have a wonderful staff downstairs in the rec office, but we also have wonderful teachers and instructors, and we have support from the school. We have teachers from the school that are terrific. I think kindergarten readiness and math blast are high on a lot of people's list, and they're fun summer classes, and we have great teachers because of it. So those are our programming statistics, our field use statistics. As amazing as it was to me that soccer could grow, soccer continues to grow. We have over 600 soccer players alone this spring. So along with the baseball and softball, it's over 450, and then we use the fields as well. So altogether, 1,277 players works out to about 3,800 weekly uses. Times that by 8 weeks, 30,000 pairs of feet on the ground. So that's the spring, and the fall is actually a little bit less, but because of the baseball and softball. But the fall is usually a stronger season for soccer. Yeah. So if we're up to 600 this spring, it'll be interesting to see what we have in the fall. Yeah. So that actually brings me, I'm going to skip down a little bit to staffing. We, like every department, I'm not going to say I know we're not alone, but we are down about 12 hours since Kathy retired, and we have a new admin who's terrific, but she's 20 hours, so we could use some help there, but we really could use some help in the DPW grounds department. There is safety and playability is about daily and weekly maintenance. So part of what I do is, through field fees, I contract out for fertilization. I buy all the materials, but I also contract out for the services. I contract out for seeding when I need to, even if we have a seeder, because they literally don't have time to do it. And it's not just the athletic fields are taken care of. Cemeteries are a huge time consumer. The schools, obviously, also the select board properties, Town Hill, the Rock Playground and Rockwood Road area. They all have to have maintenance. So they're busy, and they're short-staffed as it is, and then come the summer, people are, take vacations, and it just, playability and safety is a weekly and daily operation. It's not something we can contract out for, and it's important that for the town and risk liability, it's important to make sure we are maintaining. And we also, the advantage of that is, as well as, if you have routine maintenance, you're putting off long-term, the repairs, larger repairs aren't as often. And that's actually one of the goals we set out when we did a couple of fields 4 or 5 years ago. We said that, it is inevitable that a field will need to be rebuilt at some point. But if you maintain and take care of it on a regular basis, you're perhaps redoing it every 7 or 8 years, not every 4. And that's where we had gotten to, it's quick. Baseball and softball fields are a lot of work to take care of. And we are actually, the Rec Commission is actually looking at adjusting some fees, so we have some more fees to take care of the fields that need more work. We also were working, last year we had an intern from the Norfolk Aggie who also helped do daily maintenance. So, and I think the one other thing that I would like to stress is I know there are grants available that we don't know enough about, and we don't have the knowledge or the time to write. And I would very much advocate, and I will be advocating with the Recreation Commission as well, to look into a grant writer. There are a couple of things I can think of off the top of my head. I would like to see an AED stand at each field location, so there would be 3. They need to be hardwired. I just believe there is some sort of grant out there to help us do that. We can actually afford the stand and the AED. It's the putting them in and getting them wired. And we have AEDs, but they're in closed sheds. Like, it doesn't make sense. I mean, when we run our flag football, we have an AED out, but unless we have a coach willing to carry it out, it's not there, even though we have them. So I think that's very important. And the other thing that we really need to address is inclusion. It's no longer about AED, meeting AED, but ADA, but we need to look at our facilities and fields and think about inclusion. I think probably one of the best examples of, fairly new facility is Pond Street. I say that, but it's 25 years old. And, to get to the backfield where the little kids play, you walk down a path, and then you kind of scooch by the tennis courts, and then you walk down a hill about like this, and not very easy for many people, especially grandparents who love to go see and should be able to see their kids play. And if they can't quite make that, they have to walk about a half mile around on a gravel path.
Yeah.
Right. The facility was designed not that long ago, and it's unfortunate that it is what it is. But we need to start taking care of that and thinking of inclusion. So there's no question that anyone who shows up and wants to see a game can see a game. It's not a struggle. We run into the same situation at Freeman Kennedy. A natural grass path is not ADA accessible. But we are working on it. But I think that there could be some opportunities with grants, and I think there could be opportunities in a lot of areas for the town, even if it was a grant writer for the 3 towns together. Questions?
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I know that out of the 6,359 registrations, my kids take up about 1,000 of them.
Yes, they do.
We do appreciate everything that you guys do.
No, I think my
everything that you put
grandkids are
on.
competing with yours.
Yeah, we're about half of it. You're right.
I have to say, I do love seeing them grow up.
That's true.
Yeah, I do. It's great.
But I mean, it goes past the programs themselves. The sports are fantastic. The summer programming is fantastic. But lately, what we've been seeing in terms of like the fireworks, for instance, like these kind of community events where we get everybody together, I think was a great opportunity for this town for so many years. And you've managed to bring that together. So I can't begin to tell you how much that, as a resident, I appreciate that. And as a parent, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I will say thank you on behalf of the Recreation Commission, because we have a very strong Recreation Commission. They're very dedicated, and they work very much toward community events, and which is just terrific. It's not all about sports, but I will also say our sports organizations are terrific. It's wonderful. We meet and talk and figure it out.
My only question, because you answered everything I had in terms of opportunities and needs and whatnot, my only question was, I was up in Boston today and I walked past the DCAM office and I was like, DCAM, what's going on with our acquisition of that prison property? Is there a short little tidbit of an update that you can provide?
I can. We will acquire that land eventually. There have been challenges, including the Environmental Justice Act that came into play, and we had to rewrite because of the prison location. And we did that. We didn't get a response quite in time, so we had to redo it. That took a little more time. Then the ENF was filed, and it was denied for a couple of reasons. One of them is because one of the main reasons is because they asked for alternatives, but there really is no alternative to that land. But they wanted to see documentation for that. So we are now waiting for a proposal, which I was supposed to receive today, so hopefully I'll receive it. I guess that means in 2 weeks. And to get that quote, and I have confirmed with CPA that there are funds to do an addendum to and a new filing. We have to pay new filing fees, but that will be done, and eventually we will be owners of that property. It's been a long road. lots of challenges every time we kind of turn around.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate the update.
Sure.
Jim?
Just a couple of comments. One, having spent 3 years on your board and seeing under the covers all of the detail, my compliments. People don't have any understanding of how much goes into this and the detail involved. I didn't. I know that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being on the board.
The 3 years of learning all of that was eye-opening to me, so I compliment you on all you do. You're one of the few areas that has the ability to generate revenue independent of the general account. And I agree with you that turf field is something that would be of a dire need for our kids. They are very expensive. We're looking at it at KP as a potential refurbishment or potential replacement and the cost of that. But you do have the ability to generate revenue. And while I understand it's within certain frameworks and what have you, but you're one of the few departments that have that independent capacity to do so. You might, just a thought, you might want to consider looking at how one might, over a long period of time, 4, 5, 6 years or something of that nature, of using that ability to begin to set some funds aside to make that happen.
So that's a very good point, and we do operate under a 53D account.
I know.
And which the part of that is that at the end of the year, there can only be $10,000 not designated. I actually do have an idea that I need to talk to Todd
I do think
about.
I researched that a little bit,
Yeah.
and you do have the ability to make designation for future capital growth.
So you,
We can talk offline.
We can
on
talk
that.
about it.
I think there's a way
Yeah.
you might be able to do it. I'm just suggesting that it's something worth exploring.
I think it's a very good suggestion, and I'm actually, there's another account, a 53F and a half, and I'm going to be exploring if it's possible to designate at the end of the year money to be transferred to that.
Yep.
So I've been
There are some
thinking-
ways I think it
Yep,
could work.
I hope so. I think we're thinking along the same lines, and I would
We are
love to
too. Yeah, 'cause
know
it would be
more
a
about what you
wonderful-
are looking at.
It would take a few years, obviously, but it would be
okay.
a wonderful effort to do
Yep.
that. And
Yep.
you're one of the few that have the capacity to have some
Yes.
influence on
Yep,
that.
we are.
Yeah.
We're fortunate that we are able to operate, because in times that are tough like this,
Thanks for all you do.
I have to say, it's been about 25 years, and I'm very happy to say that I really love my job, and I love coming to my job, and I have wonderful staff downstairs. It's not often that a recreation department has a program coordinator that has a master's degree in government and 20-plus years experience and can do many things.
Appreciate the pickleball courts.
Thank you. You and many others. Fingers crossed.
It's a little bit of an inside joke, but
Yes,
that's okay.
yes. I appreciate the pickleball courts, too.
Thank you
those
so
are
much.
yours.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. And last but certainly not least, our town clerk, Carol Green. Few elections this year?
Only a couple. Just small ones, though. As you guys know, I'm in charge of I oversee two separate budgets, the office budget and the elections budget. The office budget's pretty straightforward. It's mainly salaries. Rebecca and I are both non-union, but what we do is we follow the union steps and COLAs for increases. The actual office expenses is mainly the maintenance agreements, postage for the envelopes so we can mail out all those dog tags, the dog tags. It's a pretty, that's a pretty, small budget, and, was able to bring that one down to, very small increase over last year. Did take some money away from continuing ed, conferences and continuing ed. After 13 years, I don't want to say that I don't need any, but there's a lot that you don't need to spend money on me to go. So was able to decrease there. The big one is the elections budget. Unfortunately, there was a substantial increase this year. The salaries, the salary line went up actually, quite a bit. With the September election, I have a week of early voting. That one's not going to be a whole ton of heavy lifting. Becca and I can pretty much divide that up between us. I don't think it's going to be a huge turnout, nothing that we can, and if, we do have to handle something, it'd hopefully be minimal. The November election is quite a different story. It's 2 weeks of early voting. I have budgeted for some pretty substantial, extra help for us. What I try to do to offset that is I try to use the seniors in the work program. You can't always get them. You can't always get them for the hours that you need them. I'll use them as much as I can. I try to save the town money in any way I possibly can, but I have to budget that I can't have them.
Right.
Worst case scenario.
Exactly.
The second part of that is the expenses, and that's, we have a, pretty big police detail expense that's going to happen with the November election. We don't, luckily, we don't have to have too many detail officers at most of our elections. November's a different story. This is my 2012, 2016, 2020. This is my fourth presidential election, and as you know, that they've changed quite a bit since 2012. And the police department is just amazing with making sure I have the support that I need, which is great. Maintenance agreements, census mailing, it's pretty straightforward, but it's just big numbers because of, mostly because of people. And the support. Next year you're going to see this, this budget's going to just nosedive because we have the town election. We have one election. That's it. I do try to budget strongly in case we have unforeseen things. Happened quite a few years ago. Scott Brown, when he left office, you're required to have, they do an election. I have no control over that. Right. Just things like that, if we need to run, a parallel election to any of the other elections or, something along those lines to make sure I have the personnel. One thing that I've never done is spent down a budget. I give back every single dime that I possibly can. So where this is, this is a high amount, hopefully I'll be able to give some of that back. So if anybody has any questions about any of my lines, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, I know from my perspective, I don't necessarily have any questions. I just wanted to be able to express some appreciation. These elections that have been run, and there's going to be more of them this year, obviously, have been incredibly seamless. They've been smooth. We've been able to get in and out. Nobody's had to wait very long to be able to get their votes cast. And to a certain degree, I think we might take it a little bit for granted at this point, because there are other communities that run into the volume problems and the volume periods and whatnot. And we just simply haven't had that happen here. So I think that's a testament to you.
Thank you.
And the operation that you're running, and Rebecca as well, and all of the poll workers as well. So we truly do appreciate that.
Really great support, and it's a huge team effort. It really is.
Jim?
Absolutely no questions. You run a clean and mean operation, and I can only echo what Kevin said. You guys
Thank
do a
you.
phenomenal job. We're fortunate to have you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Carol. So I do believe that concludes our budget presentation portion of this meeting. Justin, anything else to round us out with before we move on?
No, Mr. Chair.
Very good. In that case, we'll move on to our general update, starting with our town administrator.
Just a quick update. This morning, I met with Karen McGuire and some of our fellow town administrators just to get an update regarding the Tri-County building project and discuss the fiscal year 25 budget. There will be some more information regarding Tri-County that we'll discuss with the select board moving forward, but it was a productive discussion. Rentham just passed their debt exclusion language for the Tri-County project the other evening, and then there are some other communities who are considering moving forward in the fall as well. But that's really the only update I have regarding that project at the moment. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Justin. For the select board general updates, I just had one. This weekend is the Norfolk Lions fundraiser at Lake Pearl in Rentham. This is a polar plunge fundraiser where people will be jumping into Lake Pearl. If the forecast is correct, we might be getting snow leading up to this event?
When the water's 20 degrees, nobody will care.
Yeah, well, I hope that's the case. Are you plunging?
I did it once, and I'm not doing it again. Freely admit it.
Well, if anybody is interested in watching some poor souls jump into a snowy Lake Pearl, that is going to be at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday in Rentham. That brings us to our report of the warrants. Jim, do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the warrants as printed in the agenda.
I will second that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the warrants are approved. And last but not least, we have the approval of our minutes this evening. I would move in backup for our clerk that we approve the meeting minutes of January 23rd, 2024 and February 27th, 2024.
I will second.
Hearing a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that is the conclusion of our agenda this evening. Justin, is there anything else we need to do before we adjourn?
No, Mr. Chair.
Fantastic. Jim, anything else?
Nope.
Very good. In that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.